everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Something, Some Places at Certain Times. Had to think about that for a second. All right,
It's a
and
title, man. It's a
yep,
title.
and Sean is back. There he is. So, this episode, we are talking about Cyberpunk Edgerunners, the new anime Netflix series that came out. Now, if you haven't been living under a rock, then you'll know that Cyberpunk 2077 was quite an infamous video game. Came out, it's been like 2 years now, right? Since it came out?
I don't know because I actually was living under that rock. I knew that it had a terrible launch. It was like 2 years. It was 2020 when it came out, and
Yeah, I
I
think it
never played
was
it.
October and November it came out, so it's been about 2 years.
I had no interest in it actually. I didn't understand the hype behind it, so I was just kind of like really confused.
I was always interested in it because I really like the cyberpunk genre, and like it looked like a fun game. I I got it for Christmas that first year when it came out, but I didn't play it because of all the issues with it. So I was waiting for them to update it, and of course, it took them a really long time. But eventually, they did fix all the bugs. They added new features, and they released the PS5 update with update 1.5. So once they had the PS5 version, I played that. I had the PS4 disc, but it came with the free upgrade. So I did that. I upgraded it. I played it. I finished it just a couple months ago before I even knew that this TV show was coming out. And then when I started seeing the commercials for the TV show and the DLC that came out side by side, that's when I heard about this series. And yeah, so getting into it spoiler free, if you like the game, I think you'll love this series. So I played the game, I played it through, I played through all the different endings that you can get. And Sean, you, as you said, you have not played the game. So
I've never played the game, and I knew nothing about the game. And I will say that made the show kind of hard to watch at first because they throw you with so much lingo and so much of like they throw you into this world that you don't understand,
mhm.
and they don't really explain the world good for someone who's not used to the world. Because like the first episode kind of throws you in it, and I was able to pick up on some stuff, but like I still didn't really understand some stuff by the end about like edge runners versus net runners and just the different classes of people. I was
uh
kind of confused, but just picked up on what I knew by watching it.
yeah, I do think Edgerunners is kind of something from the show. Like I don't recall if they even mention it in the game, Edgerunners. But I just kind of figure it's like their gang, like the people, the mercenaries, people living on the, I don't know, edge of the law or whatever, what little law there is in Night City. But the game doesn't explicitly describe everything, especially all the lingo. You kind of just pick it up as you play along, but it is very, you know, um, like slang heavy, which is why if you watch it, it's originally in Japanese, the TV series, because it was made in Japan and its original audio is Japanese cast, but I recommend you watch it in English because if you play the game is primarily in English. There's lots of other languages that mix into it, and of course you can change language. But if you're listening to this, then you probably played the game in English, and the accents and all the different dialects and the slang of the characters match up to the different dialects that you hear in the show. So I'd recommend you watching it in English. So you get the people with like, the Hispanic accents and the standard American accents and the Cajun accents and Japanese accents and everything. So it really, if you played the game, it takes you back to that world all over again, and it's really great. If you haven't played the game, Sean, what do you think? What was your impression of it?
It was kind of like I said, kind of overwhelming at first, and the whole cyberpunk genre as a whole, like it's not really my cup of tea to begin with. It's like unless it's done really well, and this gets it close to being well, but I feel like cyberpunk as like the genre was kind of like on the back pedal of this show was more about like the characters, which I liked a lot.
Hmm.
But
Yeah, it was more of the setting than the driving force.
And like you said, with the characters, like the I don't understand the lore. We talk about it, and they have the different accents from the show or from the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed I watched it in English as well. And there were a scene where the characters were just speaking Japanese. That the like little two little they called them ninjas.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, that's cool. They're like speaking actual Japanese. Like that's dope.
Yeah, in the game they'll have like a lot of people speak their own language, but like the characters have like chips and they have translation technology in their heads, so it'll show like if you have like the dialogue lines on top of people's heads or something in the game, it actually it's really cool. I like how they do it. Or if you're in a cutscene with the subtitles on, it'll show like if a character's speaking Japanese, it'll show the Japanese writing, and as it's like typing out the Japanese writing, it'll slowly change to the English writing, the translation. So you hear the Japanese, you even see the Japanese characters, and it changes to English as as you're reading along, which I think is really cool. But
And I saw that the show kind of I never played the game, but I'm guessing the dialogue like when you're on the phone, like in the show, it had the phone call on the side with the
mm-hmm.
people's names.
Yeah,
It's like that in the game as well.
yes, exactly the same. That's the same ringtone. They show up on a little their little window shows up in the corner and they talk, and like everything, all the details of the show are right from the game. You recognize the streets, the buildings, the accents, like I said, like everything. The
Yeah, and
only
I'm a huge fan of anime and video games, but like usually anime adaptations of video games don't do very well. And
hmm
maybe because I've never played the game, but I feel like this is one of the better adaptations of a video game
yeah,
anime that
it's
did
been
pretty well.
hugely popular, and the uh game playership rate, I don't know how they call it, but the amount of people playing the game recently has like skyrocketed. It's like 30 times greater than what it was before. So it's really gone up with popularity thanks to this show and the DLC, of course.
I think the reason why that works so well is because this game, unlike other games like that get anime adaptations like Persona or Grand Theft Auto, or not Grand Theft Auto, Devil May Cry,
hmm
these games have stories, whereas Cyberpunk does it not really have a story, right? It's more of like a RPG like Skyrim, where this you kind of build your own story in a way. If
Um,
I'm not wrong.
you can build a lot, but it's definitely got a story. There's a very clear story with Keanu Reeves's character, and like all the endings are kind of similar. Like there's lots of different outcomes you can have, but I think it's a lot more determined than an RPG like Skyrim. I think Skyrim has like so much. It's almost never ending, the different possibilities you can have. Cyberpunk does have a ton you can play and a bunch of side stories you can play, but there's like there's always two there's only two love interests that you can have depending on whether you choose like the male or the female body. Um like if you choose the female body, there's one male and one female love interest. If you choose the male body, there's a different male and female love interest. So like and the love interest will end up with you at a certain stage if you go through this specific ending. Like it all kind of it's like you can take different paths to get to the same ending, basically. But it is very story driven.
Okay, I was wrong about that. I know nothing
Yeah.
about this
But you
game.
can take a lot of time off the story. There's so many side things that I haven't even done in the game. But getting back to the series, yeah, I think all the voice acting was great. I recognized a couple voices. I watched Drifting Home after I watched this series, and I noticed there was a similar voice. The voice of the kid, like the nerdy kid in Drifting Home, in English is the voice of Rebecca in this series, the girl with the colored eyeballs, the short girl.
Yeah.
So that was the same voice actor. And the voice of David, the main character, is the English voice of Tanjiro in Demon Slayer. So
Oh, really? Wow, that's
yes.
interesting.
So he's a
Because in
pretty
this show, like,
yeah. So he's making a name for himself in the voice acting world with anime. He does a lot of anime. I noticed when I looked at his credits. But yeah, all the voice acting was good, and the plot I think is great. You know, still spoiler free for a moment here. We'll wrap it up. Um, yeah, the plot I think
Yeah, I will
was.
say like
Go ahead.
the animation was also really good. The animation was
Mm-hmm.
done by Studio Trigger, which is a very popular Kill La Kill,
Mm-hmm.
Darling of the Franks. They're a spinoff of Gainax essentially, and Gainax is known for having these crazy endings that like make no sense, and Trigger sometimes follows that true through. But the animation was really good. But my one gripe with the animation was it was very colorful, very fun to look at, but sometimes felt kind of stiff to me in the fight scenes, and also the character design for the first like with Lucy and Kiwi, the two female characters in the show, one of the many female characters in the show, but I got them confused a lot, and I don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
Their character designs were pretty similar to me.
Was Kiwi the one with the mask on her
With
face?
with the mask on her face, yeah, she's always wearing the mask. But I thought that like Lucy would just put on a mask sometimes. I didn't realize it was a whole different character.
Huh.
For like the full first
Uh,
episode, they show her.
I didn't have that problem, but I mean, I guess for the first episode or whatever, but they were both net runners as well, right? They're the two net runners of the group, the gang. So yeah, so yeah, I think one of your questions you mentioned edge runners versus net runners. The net runner is basically someone who does like a deep dive into the net, um, and as you can see, kind of Ghost of the Machine inspired in some ways. Some people might think that's Matrix inspired, but Matrix didn't do it first. So, um, yeah, so it's they're the net runners, and then the other guys like the fixers, like the guy Giancarlo Esposito, um, who, I think once you hear his voice, you know exactly who it is. He has a very distinct voice. So I didn't even know he was in the series until his character came in.
I don't know current voice actors like that, so that kind
He's
of.
he's the guy from Breaking Bad. I haven't finished Breaking Bad, so I
I've
don't
never
know.
watched Breaking Bad. It's one show that like I've just, oh, I don't really watch TV shows. That's my thing. I don't really watch TV shows, so
He's
I've never
mostly a
really
live
seen.
action actor. I think you'll know him. Have you seen? Oh damn, what's it called? The Boys.
Oh, I have seen The Boys. Yeah,
He's like the CEO of
yeah, yeah.
Bar
Oh, yeah. No, he's. People have told me I look like the guy before. When I cut my hair real short, they're like, "You look like this guy." He was the chicken guy in Breaking Bad, then, right?
Chicken Guy. I mean, I don't know. I watched like a season and a half of Breaking Bad. He hasn't showed up yet.
He's he's like the black guy with the glasses, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
him.
People told me I look like him when I like cut my hair short and wear glasses for fun.
Yeah. So yeah. You recognize? Did you recognize that voice? Did it sound familiar?
No, I did not
All
understand.
right.
I didn't know that was him. Yeah.
Well, that was him. For anyone listening, he's in the show. All right. So let's yeah. So let's give it a general. What did you think of the plot? Like.
The plot was kind of like uh it was really easy to follow, but I didn't really understand what they were doing at first. With like, there's a bigger plot going on with him going to this big academy
Mm-hmm.
and getting dropped out. But the first episode kind of starts off really strong, and that does a lot for the plot. I don't know if we're trying to get into spoilers right now or not, but overall the plot was fun. It was a fun show.
Yeah, I really liked it, and so let's get into some spoilers. So we'll wrap up the spoiler-free section. I would rate this series for TV series, like for me as someone who played the video game, um, like 8 out of 10. I think it's great, really great.
Yeah, for me as an anime, I kind of judge anime pretty harder than I judge other things because there's so many good anime out there. And so for that, this is a 3 out of 5. It's like slightly above average, but with Cyberpunk being a thing where you can watch Ghost in the Shell, you can watch Technolize. It's kind of like, I know that this isn't about, oh, I want to watch some Cyberpunk, but it's just kind of like this felt really derivative to me. Also, do you remember the show Generator Rex, the Cartoon Network show?
Maybe if I saw an image from it. It sounds
Oh, the
familiar.
main character is also Mexican and has genetic implants in him. So it's like the whole time I was like, this is just adult generator Rex. And I couldn't stop thinking about that the whole
Mm,
time. And it was deeper than that, but that was
yeah.
my
Oh, in
mind.
terms of the universe and all the details, like the game doesn't go into a whole bunch of details. It stems from a board game, like a tabletop game that's been going on for decades, and the creators of this board game have put in so much detail into the universe. That's why it kind of like it has an alternate history. Like in the game, one of the main characters is Johnny Silverhand, who like blew up Arasaka Tower in like the 2030s, 36 or something like that, and he had like a full silver arm, and like all these, a lot of the prosthetics and augmentations and stuff were around by like pretty much today's time, because the stories and the stuff, the backstory for this game, everything started like in the 80s or something is when this game first, the board games first started coming out. So it's a lot more than just a video game as well. So we'll get into some spoilers now. You've been warned, and we'll try not to make it too long, but we will get into some further detail here. It is a pretty short series, so I'm sure we won't talk forever. But yeah, let's get right to it. How does this connect to the video game besides just the setting? Well, it doesn't really.
Good.
There is this takes place 1 year before the video game, right? The video game is Cyberpunk 2077. This series, it spans quite a bit of time, but it ends in 2076. And David Hernandez, right? That's his name? Hernandez?
Yeah, David Hernandez. Yeah.
He is, his name is the name of a drink you can get at the Afterlife, which is a bar where all the mercenaries go to hang out and talk about work and stuff and talk about jobs. His name is the name of a drink that you can get at the bar in the game. And in the game they explain to you that the drinks are all named after someone who died in a spectacular way. So they're like legends of Night City. So that's, as far as I'm aware, that is the only reference to David Hernandez in the game. And this movie goes out to basically explain his story. So I believe it got renewed for a new season. Let me double check that.
Oh my God. I really wouldn't like that. I hope it didn't.
Like, I'd be
I like
fine
more.
if it existed on its own. But it, well, this says it has. I think that's a bit outdated. Um,
That's the
September.
problem with Netflix things. They always want to like have a new season, have a new like series go on after it. Just like let something be a one-off story and just be done with it. And that's like lots of media today. It's like, oh, we need a sequel. We need like an end credit scene. We need more. Just like
Uh-huh.
let things die. Let things be a one-off story.
Okay, so
Let things
I'm
die like
I'm
most characters in the show did.
I'm seeing that there's no plans or no confirmation of season 2 or anything. Um, but I believe the video game is getting a sequel, so maybe that's where I mixed up. So, yeah, and apparently it took about 5 years to make season 1, so they probably won't get deeper into it, and of course the main character is dead. And a lot of people are like, "Oh, I think he could have survived because they didn't explicitly show him dying. Like, he's the name of the drink in the game. That kind of means he's dead. Like, maybe he could come back and die a couple days later, but um, yeah, I think it's totally fine if they just leave it as it is. If they do a season 2 or just like the sequel to the game, most of the characters like are not there to be in the sequel of the game or the series. So like there are plenty of other stories up in Night City that they could tell, but so like new stories with the same setting, which is essentially what the TV show is to the video game anyway. Different stories, same setting. So they could go that route, and you could go back to that world and learn something new. But yeah, I don't see them continuing this story, and I'm glad that they don't. It was a good story in itself.
Yeah, I will say that once Pilar died, the Rebecca's brother, I was kind of just like, okay, this is going to be a show where everybody's going to die. I already know it. Like, I hope at the least that the main girl, what was her name again? Not Kiwi.
Lucy.
Yeah, Lucy. I hope that Lucy survives, but everybody else, everyone's going to die. I know it now. Once the Cyberpunk killed it, Pilar, I was like, okay, this is just going to be a show that
Mm-hmm.
everybody dies.
Yeah, the whole cyberpunk universe does not hold back on violence. So yeah.
So like care for David because I was like David is his path as a whole is just like kind of like a delinquent kid like Chicago suburbs anywhere like living hard times. It's just like they're gonna fall into a gang and die, and that's what this reminded me of. That's what made it like hard for me to watch because it's kind of like watching a show about somebody falling into a gang. It's like watching The Wire, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it was like I was in a sense disappointed with David because he didn't, he didn't fix himself. He didn't listen to anyone's warnings. He saw his friends around him going cyber psycho, and instead of taking a step back himself, he just went deeper into it himself because he kind of like resigned himself to that death, and then was like, I mean, it's too late. I'll just keep going into it. So it's like, I mean, I like the fact that it's a story where they're not afraid to have, the main protagonist lose themselves, basically. So like, it's not like a feel good story, but it is disappointing for his character, of course.
Yeah, but I will say, as all things are like after everything's said and done, the music was really good. I love the opening thing a lot, and I love the
Oh,
ending. And they're both done
yes, I
by
love
like
music. I've been every opening and closing. I had my phone out trying to figure out what the songs were.
yeah, because it's like they're both done by like non-Japanese bands, so it's kind of like nice to hear like it's an American project, and the music, even in the music in the show, was lots like of non-Japanese music, lots of
A
like
lot of the
this Scottish rock
There's a
band.
lot of
Yeah,
music in the game too that you mostly hear like when you're driving vehicles, and there's a bunch of different radio stations you can click through, and they all have a bunch of different songs, and some of them are really good. Like I've looked them up, and like Keanu Reeves's character Johnny Silverhand is like the lead man of a rock band. That's like what he was known for. He was a rocker boy, and like the band in the video game that he's a part of, Samurai, they have music on Spotify, which is performed by another band. I can't remember their name right now, but like you can listen to the music from the game and from the series on Spotify. So it's pretty cool.
one last thing about music. Did you notice the theme going through the episode's titles, the running theme?
The music, like on the opening
No,
sequence.
no, the name of the titles.
Um, Not really.
Yeah, they're all named after like hip hop and R&B songs. At least that I noticed. Like there was "Stronger," which is Kanye West. There was
Uh-huh.
"Girl on Fire," Alicia Keys. There was "Smooth Criminal," Michael Jackson, which
Oh,
isn't hip hop or R&B, but like all of them were named after like songs. I thought that was really cool.
that's cool. I didn't notice that.
Yeah, I didn't notice it at first because I saw like oh "Stronger." Then I was like, okay, that could be anything. And I was like "Smooth Criminal" and "Girl on Fire." It's like, okay. These are songs. Like I know
Mm-hmm.
these are all songs, but this is on purpose.
Yeah, and yeah, it's good. I think the use of music in this show, whether it's in the credits or throughout the episode, I think was great. Yeah.
Which is surprising for like a show that's not like really like a musical thing. But I guess the game does have good music in it, so I'm glad that they linked that all through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's the music and the whole like rocker boy personality or archetype like plays a bigger role in the greater universe with the game and the board games and stuff. So it is kind of a repeat theme of the series as a whole. And yeah, so one other thing I'd like to mention is Adam Smasher, right? The guy who kills David in the end. He is in the game. There's just a couple characters in this show that show up in the game. Like you see Rogue, who's a fixer, who gets jobs for, you know, mercenaries and stuff, and she's a bigger character in the game. You just like see her face once in the TV show. I did see when I think was it Arasaka or someone, they pulled up like a list of fixers to try to get this crew in the show to, you know, do a certain job for them, to lay the trap for them. And on that list, I noticed in the corner was a fixer that you talk to in the game. If you want to, I didn't really do most of her quests, but it is a character you interact with in the game. And Adam Smasher is in the game. He's the guy who kills Johnny Silverhand back in the 30s, and then he comes back in the form of the construct in the main character's head, which is how you see Johnny Silverhand throughout the game. And then,
wow.
of course, Adam Smasher is like the big final battle that you have, and he's like, I mean, like he is in the show, he's like the most destructive person ever. He's like the only person who can deal with all that cyber hardware on his body. And he's like an absolute murderer. Like he works for Arasaka. He's like their head's like personal bodyguard or personal assassin or whatever.
Yeah, we'll say this game, like, I mean, this movie this show made me want to play the game more than anything else. Because this game had so much hype behind it, and I never understood why. But after watching the show, I'm like, I could see myself wanting to, like, dive into this world a bit, but it still seems too scary for me in terms of, like, how scary in terms of how much there is, how much content there is. I'm kind of like, I don't like commitment.
I definitely recommend it, and I think, like, I didn't do a whole lot of side stuff. I think you can skip out on most of that, and it's not like you, like, you know, in some games you kind of need to do a whole bunch of side stuff to level up, like Assassin's Creed Odyssey. It's kind of notorious. There's so much side work you need to do just to level up to carry on with the main quest. It's not really like that with this one. You can pretty much just do the main storylines. There are a couple different like side missions that you got to do that tie into it, and that would be like your love interests and stuff, which I think are worth doing, and they're kind of related to the story anyway. So you can do it without spending too much time on it. I think I might have spent less time on this than I did on Horizon Zero Dawn. I don't know what my actual playtime was, but I spent a long time on Horizon Zero Dawn, and it's not really an RPG. It's just an open world. They have some side quests, but I like 100%ed Horizon Zero Dawn, except for a couple collectibles. So I'm like 97% or something complete with that game. Whereas this one, I'm probably like 20% complete, but I still completed all the main storyline and everything. So maybe more than 20%, but I don't know. I think I'll dive back into it with the DLC. But this show definitely makes me want to go back to it, and I think the two support each other really well.
Yeah, that's like why they made the show. I feel like it was a fun watch, but I kind of like, man, I knew I was gonna be devastated, and I was devastated at the end. Even though I knew it was gonna happen, I was kind of just like, man, it sucks to watch.
Yeah, you kind of had a little bit of hope at the end when Lucy like brings him back from the edge of cyberpsychosis, but you know, can't beat Adam Smasher. So that's how it is. Unless you can beat him, I don't know. Play the game and find out. But yeah, it's good. I really enjoyed the show. Like I said, I really like the cyberpunk genre, so I really enjoy this series and this game. The game fixed all its problems, and with the DLC now, with the TV show, like now is the time to get back into it. And I think they're just like constantly improving this game. Like they didn't just fix all the bugs; they added new things, like new weapons and even new features that please people. Like when you cross the road, the cars will stop instead of just running you over all the time like they used to. Just like
That's funny.
little things like that. There's one time actually at the beginning of the game I was playing, and there's a point in the game where like you go outside with someone, like you go in the garage and it's just like a cutscene, and the scene starts and you're sitting in a car with someone, and then this other car just freaking slams into you while you're parked in a garage, in a parking garage, and I was like, yo, they did not fix this freaking game. But then the next dialogue that came up was like, oh, this is part of the story. Oh, that one was supposed to happen. Okay, it's all good. It's all good. So yeah, I didn't have any bugs playing the game. They like fixed everything. I'm sure there's a couple small bugs here and there that people still experience, like with most games. But this was like they like totally fixed it. Now it's a great game. It's just a shame it took them like a year and a half to get to that point. I think it's part of the fans' fault though, because they kept delaying it, and then the fans are like, "Stop delaying the game. We want to play it." So they release it, and then they're like, "Why would you release an unfinished game?"
Yeah.
But I mean, I wouldn't say it's the fans' fault. The studio still decided to release the game, but yeah, it's but now it's all better. So if you get a hold of it, I recommend playing it. Anyone listening, if you watch the show without playing the game, I think you might appreciate the other more, that now that you've seen, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you play the game, you'll appreciate the show better. If you've seen the show, you'll appreciate the game better.
And if you watch the show because you played the game, you're not into anime, then watch Technolize. Or if you like the way this anime looked, watch Kill La Kill by the same studio, or maybe Darling in the France by the same studio.
Yeah, so I think that's pretty much all I have to say about it. What about you?
Yeah, that's it for me too. Decent show, but there are better anime out there to watch. So
I definitely agree with that. But yeah, in general, I really liked it. Again, for a TV show, I give it 8 out of 10. That's coming from someone who really likes the genre to start with and has played the video game. So 8 out of 10 for me.
yeah, 3 out of 10 3 out of 5 for someone who's never really gotten into the series.
All right. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening. This will be on YouTube and Spotify. Please like, share, subscribe, do whatever you got to do. Help us get the word out. And thank you for listening.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.
Forgive me for